The forest breathed around her, leaves whispering secrets beneath the silver glow of the moon. She paused at the edge of the clearing, heart fluttering, sensing a presence she could not see. Shadows shifted between the trees, and then she saw him, a figure standing perfectly still, watching her with eyes that gleamed like molten gold in the moonlight. He looked cold, distant, untouchable. A part of her wanted to run, yet another part, one she refused to acknowledge, felt an inexplicable pull toward him. He made no move, yet his gaze was weighty, almost suffocating in its intensity. Every instinct screamed that he was dangerous, yet a voice deep inside whispered that he was the one who might understand her in ways no one else could. He turned slightly, revealing a jaw clenched in restraint. There was something behind the indifferent mask, something raw and private he would never show the world. She shivered, the wind tugging at her hair, brushing her cheeks with cold fingers, and for a brief, impossible moment, she imagined him stepping closer, brushing it away himself. But he didn't. He merely tilted his head, a subtle acknowledgement of her awareness, and melted back into the shadows. Her pulse thundered in her ears, echoing the ache she didn't yet understand. The pack house felt impossibly far away now, and she realized that something had shifted. The air was charged, electric, filled with secrets neither dared speak aloud. "Who are you?" She whispered to the night, her voice trembling, though she knew the answer would remain hidden. A soft rustle answered her, not a reply, but a warning. And then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness as if he had never been there at all. Her chest tightened. She wanted to hate him for the thrill and terror he stirred, but she couldn't. And somewhere, buried deep, a tiny ember of curiosity had ignited, a dangerous, irresistible ember that promised more than she could yet imagine. The moon dipped behind a cloud, casting the forest into deeper shadow. Her fingers curled into fists at her sides, knuckles whitening. She didn't know his name, she didn't know his motives, but one thing was certain. Her life would never be the same again, and in the distance, eyes that burned like fire followed her retreating figure. The following evening, the pack gathering buzzed with laughter, the clinking of glasses and murmurs of politics disguised as casual chatter. She stood near the edge of the great hall, trying to appear composed, though her chest still ached from the memory of the eyes that had watched her vanish into the night. And then he appeared. His entrance was silent yet commanding, every movement precise, every gaze deliberate. The room seemed to shift around him, as if the air itself deferred to his presence. When his eyes landed on her, a shiver ran down her spine. Not warmth, not welcome, only that same cold, unreadable intensity. "Ah," he said smoothly, as though her presence were merely a coincidence. "You must be the one everyone's been whispering about." His words were neutral, but the weight behind them pressed against her chest. She tried to smile. I'm just me," she stammered, her voice barely above the hum of the gathering. The murmur of the pack grew, anticipating some drama, and her stomach knotted. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the faint heat radiating from his body, yet not close enough to comfort. "I'm afraid I cannot." He paused, choosing each word carefully. "I cannot allow this, whatever this is, to continue." The room seemed to tilt. Eyes widened, whispers erupted, and she felt every gaze pierce her like a knife. Her heart stuttered, not from fear alone, but from the unbearable sting of rejection in front of everyone. "Excuse me." Her voice cracked despite her best effort to remain calm. He did not falter. "I'm sorry. You misunderstand me, but I will not." The words hit like icy rain. She blinked, trying to convince herself she had misheard. But the pack's laughter, the low murmurs of speculation, the heat of embarrassment burning her cheeks, it was all too real. Yet beneath the mask of disdain, he was struggling. Every muscle in his jaw was taut, his golden eyes flickering with a fire she could not see. He wanted to reach for her, to pull her into his arms and erase the humiliation, but he could not. Not here, not now, not without exposing the secret he had sworn to protect. She turned abruptly, fleeing toward the shadowed veranda, every step fueled by heartbreak and disbelief. The murmurs followed her, but she barely noticed. Her vision blurred as the cool night air hit her face. Behind her, his eyes burned with something fear, rage, longing, and a love he could not voice. His hand twitched at his side, the impulse to chase her nearly overwhelming. But he stayed rooted, as he always did, for the pack, for appearances, for her safety. Her chest burned with unshed tears, and yet she could not stop thinking of him, the man who had rejected her so publicly, yet whose gaze lingered with something unspoken, something dangerous, something that promised he loved her. In secret, and somewhere in the recesses of his mind, he vowed silently, she would never know the half of it. Her chest still burned from his rejection, but the night offered no mercy. The pack house, once a place of safety and familiarity, now felt suffocating. Whispers trailed her wherever she went, subtle glances exchanged behind hands, and the weight of rumors pressed against her like an invisible hand. They say he's always watching her, one pack member whispered under their breath as she passed. But she doesn't even know. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to confront them, demand the truth, but fear, sharp and unyielding, kept her silent. Every word, every glance from the pack now felt like a reminder of her public humiliation. Yet she was not alone. Even from the shadows he was there. She didn't see him, but instinct told her someone was always near. That golden intensity, invisible yet undeniable, followed her, protective and fierce. That night, when she finally slipped into the forest behind the pack house, hoping to escape the prying eyes, a rustle in the trees made her stop. A branch snapped, sharp and sudden, and her heart leapt. She spun, eyes wide, who's there? She called, voice trembling. A figure stepped from the darkness, movement fluid, silent. He stopped a few feet away, expression unreadable. The moonlight caught the edges of his face, highlighting a jaw set with determination, eyes burning with a fire he refused to reveal. You shouldn't wander alone, he said softly, almost a whisper, yet every word carried weight, authority, and care. I can take care of myself, she replied, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. He said nothing, only inclined his head slightly, a silent acknowledgement. And then, just as quickly as he appeared, he vanished into the shadows. Her knees weakened. She leaned against a tree, exhaling shakily. Protection, not affection. He wanted her safe, that much was clear. But why? Why the cold rejection in front of everyone if he cared so deeply? The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying with it the distant sounds of the pack laughter, clinking glasses, idle chatter. And yet, in that moment, she felt more alone than ever, aware that the man who could shield her from danger was the same man who had humiliated her publicly. Somewhere in the depths of the forest, eyes that burned with gold followed her every move, and though he remained hidden, a promise lingered in the air. He would protect her, no matter the cost, but for her, the mystery only deepened. Who was he? Why did he reject her openly yet guard her secretly? And when would she finally understand the truth? As the forest darkened further under the crescent moon, the shadows whispered secrets she wasn't ready to hear. The forest was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. She moved cautiously, footsteps light on the carpet of fallen silver leaves, each one glinting under the moon's pale glow. Her heart still throbbed from the earlier whispers in the pack, but here, among the ancient trees, she felt, almost safe, yet the feeling of being watched prickled her skin. She stopped, scanning the shadows between the trunks. Every instinct screamed that someone, something, was near. Then, a subtle shift in the moonlight caught her eye, a symbol carved into a tree trunk, almost hidden beneath moss. It was delicate, intricate, something meant only for her to notice. She traced it lightly with her fingers, feeling a warmth emanate from the grooves. You're clever. A voice murmured from the shadows. Her body froze. The voice was low, smooth, familiar. Golden eyes emerged from the darkness, glowing faintly. He stepped closer, but not close enough to touch, enough to remind her of the distance he insisted on keeping. Why are you here? She asked, heart fluttering. Why leave these signs? He did not answer immediately. Instead, he watched her, expression unreadable. Then finally he said, because even when you think you are alone, you are not. Danger lingers, and I cannot let it touch you. The words should have felt cold, yet they carried a hidden tenderness, the kind that made her pulse skip and her chest ache. She wanted to reach out to close the gap between them, but hesitation rooted her to the spot. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much, but hate me at the same time?" He gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head. "I do not hate you, but the pack, our world. It cannot know the truth yet, not until the time is right." Her chest tightened with frustration, longing, and a spark of something dangerous, a curiosity that demanded answers. But before she could speak again, a branch snapped nearby, and he vanished, leaving only the carved symbol as proof he had been there. She pressed her palm to her heart, trying to steady her racing thoughts. The forest seemed to hum around her, alive with secrets she could almost touch. And deep inside, she knew this. The alpha who had publicly rejected her was the same one who watched over her in silence, whose hidden protection spoke louder than any words. As she walked back toward the pack house, a strange mix of fear and exhilaration thrummed through her veins. Somewhere, in the shadows of the silver trees, he was waiting, silent, vigilant, and dangerously close to revealing everything, and she wondered, not for the first time, if she was ready to discover the truth. The next days passed in a haze of stolen moments and unspoken tension. Every time she entered the pack house, she felt his presence before she even saw him, a shadow at the edge of her vision, the faintest shift of movement, a gold flash in the corner of her room. And every time her heart betrayed her, hammering against her ribs with a dangerous rhythm. At the training grounds that afternoon, she tried to focus on her sword drills, her hands gripping the hilt tighter than necessary. But across the field, he was watching, leaning casually against a tree, arms crossed, yet every inch of his body radiated awareness, control, and something more, something forbidden. Their eyes met briefly, a collision that sent a jolt through her entire body. She looked away quickly, cheeks burning, pretending to adjust her stance. She could feel him studying her, a predator masked as an alpha, and the air between them felt charged, impossibly alive. "You're distracted," he said suddenly, stepping closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I'm not," she lied, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "You are," he countered softly, just a whisper that carried the weight of truth. "Every glance you throw toward me, every falter in your movement, I see it all." Her breath caught. She wanted to hate him for seeing so much of her, for making her vulnerability so apparent, but she couldn't. Not when he looked at her like this, like she was the only thing that mattered in the world, even while pretending otherwise to everyone else. "Why do you care?" she asked, voice barely audible, more to herself than to him. His lips curved in a fraction of a smirk, cold yet intimate, "Because someone has to." He stepped closer, the space between them shrinking by inches, the forested training grounds suddenly seeming small and suffocating. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous, yet their eyes kept finding each other, forbidden glances laden with emotion neither dared speak aloud. Her pulse thundered in her ears, her cheeks flushed, and every thought screamed both caution and desire. And then a shout from the pack rang out in the distance, shattering the charged moment. He straightened, mask of indifference slipping back into place, and turned away. She swallowed hard, realizing how desperately she wanted to chase him, to demand answers, to close the distance. But she knew she couldn't. Not yet. Not when every look between them was a battle of restraint, every brush of presence a spark threatening to ignite. And somewhere in the depths of the shadows, he lingered, watching her retreat, every muscle taut with the need to reach for her, and the restraint to stay hidden, invisible, and painfully untouchable. The slow burn between them was no longer subtle. It was a wildfire threatening to consume everything they both had fought so hard to hide. The next full moon brought with it tension thicker than the mist curling around the pack grounds. She felt it immediately, a presence that made the hairs on her neck rise, and the warmth of anticipation and dread twist together in her chest. He was there, as always, lurking in the shadows, golden eyes flicking toward her with a storm barely restrained. But tonight she sensed something else, something new, something unwelcome, From across the clearing, a man stepped forward, tall, confident, and dripping with predatory charm. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and immediately fixated on her. Unlike the alpha who haunted her every glance, this one's attention was not tempered by restraint. It was brazen, claiming, invasive. "Finally found you," the stranger said, voice smooth like honeyed poison. "I've been looking for someone like you." Her heart stuttered. Every instinct screamed that this man was dangerous, yet the words stirred a confusing flutter of attention, pride, and fear. From the shadows, the alpha's gaze hardened. Every muscle in his body tensed, his jaw set as though it could crush steel. His hands twitched at his sides, and she caught the faintest flicker of a growl deep in his throat. "Back off," he said, voice low, calm, but edged with a lethal warning. Every syllable carried the weight of authority, danger, and a claim she didn't yet fully understand. The rival laughed lightly, stepping closer, ignoring the unspoken line of territory. "I don't think so. She belongs with me now. Don't you think it's time to accept that?" Her pulse quickened, and she found herself caught between fear and desire. The stranger was audacious, bold, everything the alpha was not. But the alpha's silent, protective presence wrapped around her like a shield she couldn't see. She wanted to step back to hide, but the pull toward him, the alpha, was undeniable. She could feel the intensity radiating off him, a silent promise that he would not let this interloper claim her. He moved closer, just a fraction, so subtle she could barely see the motion. "I warned you," he murmured, every word thick with danger. "Touch her, and you will regret it." The stranger's smirk faltered slightly, but his confidence remained. Then perhaps she should choose for herself. And that was the cliffhanger she felt in her bones. The battle was no longer just about secret glances or hidden protection. It had escalated. Stakes were rising. Desire, danger, and jealousy had intertwined, and the alpha's silent rage promised that the coming days would shatter her world completely. She shivered, realizing the line between safety and chaos had vanished. And somewhere in the darkness, the alpha's golden eyes never left her, burning brighter than the full moon above. The forest that night seemed unusually silent, as if it too was holding its breath. She could feel it in the air, the tension that wrapped around her like a shroud. Every shadow seemed sharper, every rustle of leaves heavier, hinting at secrets too dangerous to speak aloud. He was with her, though not by her side, always watching, always waiting. The golden glow of his eyes cut through the darkness when he emerged from the trees, yet his expression was unreadable, a mask she had come to know all too well. "You feel it too, don't you?" he asked, voice low, almost a growl. The words were more than a question. They were a warning. "Feel what?" she whispered, though she knew the answer before it left her lips. "The tension, the danger." He shook his head slightly, eyes darkening. "More than that. There's a cur, sentient, lingering. It binds me even now. It's why I cannot claim you, not yet." Her heart skipped. A curse, danger. Her pulse thrummed in a mixture of fear and anticipation. Every fiber of her being screamed to ask more, to demand the truth, but she hesitated. The forest seemed alive, watching, listening, and she feared what might answer. "You've been protecting me all this time," she said softly, voice trembling. "Even after the rejection, even when I didn't understand why." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, yet still holding the distance that their circumstances demanded. "Because someone has to," he murmured, "because no one else could. The curse, it's not just mine. It reaches further than you can imagine, and it would destroy you if I let it touch you." Her chest tightened, a mixture of awe and dread curling through her. The man who had publicly rejected her, humiliated her, and yet remained impossible to read. He had been guarding her all along, bound by a secret no one else could fathom. A rustle in the underbrush snapped both their attention to the trees. His posture stiffened, senses sharpening. Danger was close, tangible, and unseen. The forest itself seemed to press in, warning them, reminding them that the shadows carried threats far beyond human comprehension. "I don't understand," she whispered, trembling yet unable to step back. "You will," he replied, voice barely audible but filled with unshakable certainty. "Soon you will see everything, but until then you must trust me, even if it kills me to keep the secret." The wind stirred, carrying a whisper through the trees. She caught it, or perhaps imagined it, a faint voice warning of things yet unseen. Her fingers curled into her sleeves, and she realized with a jolt how deeply she had come to rely on him, even when she could not fully trust him. Golden eyes held hers, fierce and unyielding, promising both protection and revelation, but keeping the boundaries of the curse intact. And in the silence of the night, under the watch of an unforgiving moon, she understood the danger was far from over. And he would never let her face it alone. The next days felt like walking through a storm with no shelter. Every glance from the rival, every whispered comment from the pack, struck her like a blade. She could feel the weight of judgment pressing in, suffocating, while uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. He was always near, though never close enough to ease the ache in her chest. The golden fire in his eyes followed her movements with a possessiveness he could not voice. And yet he remained hidden, silent, leaving her to face the pack and the rival. Alone, why does he hide? She asked herself as she walked past the training grounds. The rival, bold and brazen, offered her smiles meant to charm, gestures meant to claim. Every touch, every word, threatened to unravel the fragile defenses she'd built. She felt herself faltering, doubt creeping in like a cold shadow. The rival's smirk haunted her, the way he spoke to her as if she belonged to him, and the worst part, her heart ached in ways she didn't want to admit. From the shadows, he appeared suddenly, silent as the night, his presence a shield she could not touch. Golden eyes burned, scanning the rival with a quiet fury. Every muscle in his body was coiled, restrained only by his vow to remain unseen. "Don't let him get to you," he whispered, voice low and urgent, as if the night itself could hear. "Do not let him claim what is not his." Her breath caught. She wanted to run into his arms, to tell him she was terrified, that she needed him, but she could not. Not while the world was watching, not while he carried the weight of a secret she still didn't fully understand. "You're so impossible," she muttered, voice barely audible, frustration and longing warring within her. "I am protecting you," he replied, a faint growl underlining the words, "even if you cannot see it." The rival's approach cut through the tension like a knife. He smiled, a predator confident in his claim, and reached toward her. She stepped back instinctively, heart hammering. Golden eyes flared from the darkness, a silent promise that he would not allow this. The air between them crackled with unspoken emotion. Every glance, every movement, every stolen breath heightened the danger. Not just from the rival, but from the longing that burned hotter with every encounter. Her chest tightened. She knew she was trapped between desire and survival, between fear and trust, and yet she couldn't deny the pull toward him. The alpha who had rejected her, humiliated her, yet protected her in ways no one else could understand. The forest and the pack around them faded into insignificance. It was a battlefield of hearts now, and she realized with a thrill and a pang that she could not escape it. And somewhere in the shadows his gaze never left her, a silent sentinel of devotion, rage, and love restrained by circumstance, and by the secrets that had yet to be revealed. The tension had been building for days, a coiled storm barely restrained, and tonight it finally snapped. The rival had overstepped again, his audacity testing the alpha's patience in ways that were no longer tolerable. She had been walking along the edge of the pack grounds when she sensed it, the shift in the air, subtle but unmistakable. The alpha emerged from the shadows, movements deliberate, predatory, controlled. His golden eyes glowed brighter than ever, focused entirely on the intruder who dared threaten what was his. "You've pushed too far." The alpha's voice was low, calm, but it carried an edge that could cut steel. Every word dripped with danger, a promise that no mercy would follow should his warning go unheeded. The rival smirked, trying to mask his unease, though the faint flicker of hesitation betrayed him. "I don't see why you're so threatened," he said smoothly. "She may not even." The alpha's hand shot out, grabbing the rival by the collar, yanking him forward with a force that made the pack gasp. His fury was restrained, but his eyes burned with a silent, lethal promise. "She belongs to no one but me," he said, each word deliberate, heavy with meaning. "You touch her, and you will regret it. The rival faltered, realizing the depth of the alpha's warning, but he was far from defeated. Pride made him push back, and the tension between the two men was palpable, like a storm ready to break. She stepped back, heart hammering, breath caught between fear and awe. Every instinct screamed that he could destroy the rival with ease, yet the alpha restrained himself, not for anyone else, but for her, to prevent her from witnessing the full weight of his fury. Her chest ached as she realized more vividly than ever just how much he cared. The golden gaze that had haunted her dreams, that had followed her in the shadows, that had watched over her silently. This was not indifference. This was love masked as control, rage tempered by devotion. The rival finally staggered back, the warning clear, and as he retreated, the alpha's eyes flicked to her, softer now, filled with an intensity that made her knees weak. "You are safe," he murmured, voice low, almost tender. For now, her pulse raced, heart thundering with a mix of fear, relief, and longing. She had never truly understood the depth of his feelings, not until she saw the controlled fury, the protective rage, the hidden love that burned for her alone. And in the silence that followed, only the wind and the distant cries of the forest filled the air, carrying with them the unspoken promise. He would always protect her, even from the darkness that lingered both outside and within. The night was thick with tension, shadows twisting around the pack grounds, as though the trees themselves leaned in to witness what was about to unfold. She could feel it, the weight of secrets that had been kept for too long, the invisible chains binding hearts and truths alike. He stood before her, golden eyes blazing, no longer the untouchable, cold figure who had rejected her publicly. Tonight, the mask was gone. Every ounce of restraint, every carefully constructed wall, fell away in the fire of his gaze. "You've been lied to," he said, voice low but firm, trembling slightly with emotion he could no longer contain. "Everything you thought, everything the pack believes, it's not true." Her heart raced, pulse hammering in her ears. "What do you mean?" she whispered, though deep down a part of her already knew. He took a step closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from him, a magnetic pull she could neither resist nor deny. "I never rejected you," he confessed, each word a dagger of truth and relief. "I've loved only you, from the moment I first saw you. Everything I did, every cruel word in public, every act of distance. It was to protect you, from the rival, from the curse, from the pack's scrutiny, from yourself." Her knees weakened, and she sank onto the edge of the forest clearing, tears threatening to spill. The humiliation, the heartbreak, the longing, all of it converged into a single, overwhelming wave of emotion. "You loved me," she breathed, disbelief and wonder intertwining. "I do," he said, dropping to one knee, reaching for her hand with a tenderness that shattered every fear she had carried. "I love you and the curse. It's not insurmountable. Together we can break it. But I needed you to understand one thing first, that my love was never conditional, and my rejection was never real." The forest seemed to hold its breath as she stared into his eyes, golden fire and raw vulnerability intertwining. She realized that all the secret glances, the protection from shadows, the subtle signs of care, they had all been proof of what her heart had feared to hope for. "Can I believe you?" she whispered, voice trembling. "You can," he promised, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "because it's always been you, only you." A quiet calm settled over them, though danger still lingered in the periphery. The curse, the rival, the pack politics, none of it mattered in that moment. What mattered was the truth finally revealed and the fragile, trembling bridge of trust that stretched between their hearts. She closed the distance, letting herself lean into him, feel his warmth, his protection, and the undeniable pull of destiny. The golden eyes softened, and he drew her closer, as if by sheer will he could shield her from all the shadows that had haunted them both. In that moment, the chains of misunderstanding and deception shattered, leaving only a raw, unfiltered truth. Love, unmasked and unstoppable, had claimed them both, and beneath the silver moon, they finally allowed themselves to breathe together, whole and ready for whatever came next. The morning after the revelation, the forest seemed softer, bathed in golden light as if even nature was celebrating the truth finally spoken. She walked slowly along the moss-covered path, each step lighter than the last, though her heart still raced at the memory of his confession. He appeared as always, emerging from the shadows without a sound, golden eyes meeting hers with warmth now unmasked. No restraint, no hidden walls, only the raw, unyielding devotion she had feared she'd never see. "You're awake early," he said, voice gentle, teasing even, though she could sense the tension lurking beneath. His need to protect, to claim, to reassure. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted, feeling the vulnerability she had tried to hide all these days. Too many thoughts, too many what-ifs. He stepped closer, brushing a stray leaf from her hair. "No more what-ifs," he said softly. "Everything is out now. The lies, the curse, the rival. They hold no power over us anymore, you and I. We are what matters." Her chest tightened as she studied him. Every guarded glance, every act of silent protection, every fleeting moment of connection, all of it led to this, a bond unbroken, fated, undeniable. She realized that she had always known, deep inside, that he had loved her. She had just needed to hear it, to feel it. I want to trust you," she whispered, her fingers trembling slightly as they reached for his, completely, no secrets, no lies. He took her hands in his, golden eyes burning with intensity and tenderness all at once. "Then trust me," he said. "Trust that I will never let you fall, that I will fight for you, protect you, love you always." The forest seemed to hum around them, the sunlight filtering through the leaves like liquid gold. She felt the last of her fear dissolve, replaced by something exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Surrender to him, to their bond, to a love that had always been waiting. He pulled her close, careful yet claiming, and she rested her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heartbeat. In that moment, words were unnecessary. Their bond spoke volumes. Protection, passion, destiny, and unwavering devotion. And somewhere deep within, she felt it, the fated connection, undeniable and eternal. A bond that had weathered rejection, secrecy, and danger, now strengthened by truth and trust. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other's presence, letting the world fall away until only the warmth, the heartbeat, and the silent promise remained. The rival, the pack, the shadows of past misunderstandings, all faded into insignificance. For the first time, she knew the Alpha's love was hers, and she was his, completely, and in that quiet morning light, the slow burn of longing, fear, and tension transformed into something new, hope, trust, and the promise of forever. The night of the full moon bathed the forest in silver light, each beam cutting through the darkness like a promise of destiny fulfilled. The pack grounds were quiet, unusually so, as if even the wolves themselves sensed the importance of what was about to unfold. She stepped into the clearing, heart pounding, every nerve alive with anticipation. The memories of rejection, the whispers of the rival, the shadows of secrecy, all of it seemed distant now, replaced by the undeniable pull of fate. And then he appeared, emerging from the forest like the embodiment of the moonlight itself. Golden eyes glowed with a fierce, unrestrained intensity, no longer hidden, no longer restrained by fear, curse, or pretense. He was completely his true self, alpha and protector, lover and mate. "You're here," he said softly, yet his voice carried across the clearing like a command and a plea all at once. "I am," she whispered, letting her gaze meet his. "I'm here. I'm yours." For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. The forest held its breath. Even the pack, hidden in the shadows, felt the tension crackle between them, the slow burn finally reaching its climax. He stepped forward, each movement deliberate, golden eyes never leaving hers. "Then take my hand," he said, voice low and commanding. "Take your place where you've always belonged." She moved closer, letting him take her hand. The heat between them was undeniable, the pull of destiny magnetic, irresistible. Their fingers intertwined, and for the first time there was no hesitation, no fear, no secrets. "I've waited for this. For you," he murmured, drawing her closer. His hands rested on her waist, firm yet gentle, grounding her, claiming her. Her breath caught as she leaned into him, the full moon illuminating the raw emotion in his golden gaze. Every glance, every touch, every hidden act of love over the past weeks converged in this moment, explosive and tender all at once. "I'm yours," she whispered, voice trembling, and it was no longer a plea but a declaration. He pulled her into his arms fully, lips brushing hers in a kiss that carried every emotion unspoken, every longing restrained, every danger endured. The forest around them blurred, the moonlight bathing them in silver, and in that embrace all fears, curses, and rivals melted away. They broke apart only slightly, foreheads resting together, breath mingling. "Always," he said, golden eyes softening with unshakable certainty. "Always," she echoed. The pack watched from the shadows, silent witnesses to the fated bond now claimed openly. The rival, nowhere in sight, knew the truth. He could never come between them. Under the full moon, destiny was sealed. The alpha and his mate, no longer hidden, no longer restrained, embraced their love fully, the culmination of longing, danger, and slow, burning desire. And as the moonlight shimmered on their entwined forms, the forest seemed to sigh in approval. Their journey had been fraught with rejection, secrets, and trials, but in this moment nothing existed outside of the two of them. They had found each other, they had claimed each other, and their hearts beat as one beneath the watchful, eternal glow of the full moon.